This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Why does Ash Ketchum never retire from the Pokemon anime? Why has he not achieved his goal after all these years? And why the heck does he release so many badass Pokemon? Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? We first saw Ash Ketchum begin his adventure way back in 1997, at the tender make-believe age of 10 years old, an age that carries about as much meaning as me telling you that I am 10 years old. But regardless, 1997 was a long time ago, and as you may know, Ash's story was originally intended to end within the first few years of the anime, but it didn't, and in fact, it looks like it may never end, at least within our lifetimes. And as a result, Ash's existence as a stumpy anime character was forever changed, thrusting him into a never-ending life in the twilight and forcing the writers to employ a variety of unusual techniques to develop him, so that the anime wouldn't feel as flat as a Stunfisk, and to also develop him in a way that doesn't age him since he needs to remain relatable to kids. We are going to unpack 5 of these techniques in just a moment, but firstly, how did Ash even end up chained to the wheel as the unaging multi-decade star of the anime to begin with? In short, the early and explosive popularity of Pokemon around the world shocked everyone, especially the creators. And with the brand quickly evolving into a multimedia franchise in need of easily recognizable mascots, the powers that be acted quickly to transform the franchise's most recognizable human character into an immortal brand icon that fans could rally around for decades to come. Or to dunk on. That is to say that like Detective Conan, Spider-Man, Ampan-Man, or Nikuman before him, Ash's story may have begun with an end in sight, but with big dollars on the table and a growing multimedia franchise to promote, he was soon flung into the floating timeline, a bizarre dimension of storytelling upon which linear time flow doesn't exist and unaging characters live perpetually in the continuous present, which is great for your skin, but probably not so great for your character development. The floating timeline is widely used in comics and long-running cartoons and isn't inherently bad, rather it is something that is intentionally implemented as a narrative device by writers who want to focus on the stories and the world instead of the characters, or writers who want to make mountains of money to take baths in over the next several decades. But given that all 3 of these things are connected, how exactly do you keep a floating timeline character from feeling that they haven't stagnated but are actually moving forward when we are decades deep into their adventures without a conclusion in sight? The answer to this question is tied to the answer to the questions posed earlier in this video. Why hasn't Ash achieved his goal of becoming a Pokemon master? Why does he release his Pokemon? And for that matter, why did Pikachu have to get dunked on by that milquetoast Paul knockoff? When it comes to Ash Ketchum of the Pokemon anime, it all comes down to 5 techniques with which the writers have handled his development, and it is interesting stuff. So kindly request your Machoke to cross-chop that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe, and power pump that notification bell so that you might actually get notified about my videos from time to time, and let's jump right in. Well, actually, before we jump right in, if you are interested in learning how to develop characters and sharpen your storytelling techniques, then you will want to check out today's sponsor, Skillshare. Firstly, thank you to our friends at Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators that is dedicated to helping you improve your skills while deepening existing passions and getting lost in creativity. It's also super affordable. Did you say super affordable? Why, yes I did. And better yet, the first 1,000 people to use this link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare to get a taste of quality teaching on subjects that actually interest you and are actually useful to you. And with that said, here are a couple classes that I recommend checking out. Firstly, one of the courses that I recommended last time we talked about Skillshare was Real Productivity: How to Build Habits That Last by Thomas Frank. And if you enjoyed that one, then I highly recommend Thomas's productivity masterclass, create a custom system that works. Thomas's clear, concise teaching style and manly beard are as hot as always. And for those of you who make great plans but give up on them after a few weeks, I highly recommend this course, as Thomas will show you how to build strong task management systems that will push you to your goal even when you aren't feeling motivated. The second course I wanted to recommend to all of you is Science Fiction and Fantasy: Creating Unique and Powerful Worlds by Lincoln Michel. If you're like me, then perhaps you dream of penning an incredible fantasy novel or manga, but a fantasy story is nothing without an incredible world that is fantastical but also believable, and Lincoln's insights on ripple effects and reinventing classic tropes to create your own banger story have been more than useful for developing fantasy worlds in my own very super secret charusharu projects. Anyways, productivity, world building, storytelling, singing, there's a ton of your potential waiting to be unlocked with Skillshare, and the value for money is really something special. So if that tickles your Tyrannotars, be sure to go and click the link in the description to claim your free trial of Skillshare Premium. And with that said, thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And now let us dig into the chat about the 5 techniques that the Pokemon anime's writers have employed to extend Ash's life as a character to keep him interesting over the long term, as well as the consequences of using these techniques, aka goodbye Ash Greninja. Firstly, the writers have used something which we will refer to as marginal development, meaning that opposed to making any drastic changes to Ash's character outside of some fairly big developments in the early years, they have developed him incrementally over time and in a way that can be continued indefinitely. One of the most recognizable examples of this is the Ketchum confidence break cycle, wherein Ash pulls off a streak of victories and swells up with confidence only to get crushed by a strong opponent, fall into a state of depression, and blitz through a redemption arc in which he bonds with his Pokemon or learns something new so that he can eventually come out on top of his opponent in a rematch. This is a pretty natural storytelling mechanism in a slice of life sports anime like Pokemon, and Ash goes through this cycle multiple times in every series, giving us the sense that he is growing from his trials bit by bit, and I would say that it works quite well with the intended audience who stick with the show for 2 to 3 years. Secondly, Ash is further developed through something that I like to refer to as lateral progress. Why, after all this time, has Ash not become a Pokemon Master? Think about it. How many badges does Ash have? If I'm not mistaken, he has a whopping 52 badges. Not to mention big victories in the Orange League, the Battle Frontier, and the Alola League. He has also traveled more than most people do in a lifetime, and even saved the world more than a few times. And yet, how much closer does any of this bring him to achieving his overarching goal of becoming a Pokemon Master? To be honest, who knows, as this intentionally ambiguous goal that all of his seasonal mini-goals are tied into allows him to keep moving laterally from region to region and racking up achievements with no end in sight, quite unlike characters like Edward Elric or Eren Yeager, who all have a concrete objective and story that comes to an end along with the completion of that objective. On the other hand, by way of lateral progress, Ash can continue competing, continue losing, continue winning, and continue moving laterally into different adventures in different regions during his quest to become a Pokemon Master, whatever that term actually means. And thus, he keeps adventuring, he keeps getting new Pokemon, and he keeps challenging himself, but instead of simply becoming incredibly strong over time, which might necessitate the type of wild and free power scaling wonky-tonk of an anime like Dragon Ball, Pokemon takes a different approach in order to give Ash enough room for marginal development in each new series. Ah, yes, the infamous soft resets. And I'm not talking about pressing Start, Select, L and R on your Super Famicom. Essentially, with the onset of every new series, we see Ash work from the ground up to build a fresh team that he takes deep into the league championships like some kind of prodigy volleyball coach who can make a top-tier team out of anyone who walks through the door. That is pretty damn impressive in itself, and Ash has built up quite the roster of funny lizards and funny monkeys who really know how to light things up. And yet, at the end of each series, he hands over the big boys and the big girls to Professor Oak, except for the weird mouse, to start anew in the next region over and over and over again. This is a soft reset, and it allows the writers to continue to use Ash until the end of time without him becoming the one-punch man of the Pokemon universe. And yes, it is amazing that he can consistently build such amazing teams from scratch in every region, but for someone who is in it to win it, you'd think that he would lean on his proven firepower when it counts more often than he does, given the great success that approach led him to in the Battle Frontier. I mean, was Pignite really a better Virtress Conference pick than Infernape? Could swapping out Talonflame for Charizard have salvaged his Kalos League run? And on that note, was Greninja really the most sensible counter to Alan's Charizard when we had Ash Kingler, the strongest Pokemon of all time, just chilling out in Professor Oak's fridge? I think not. Ash is like that one community league soccer coach who even gives the stankiest grass pickers a chance to play, much to the frustration of every snobby soccer mom who actually wants their kid's team to win. And this is why juggernauts like Charizard and Infernape are sidelined, and big hitters like Greninja and Naganadel were always destined to be released. It is most definitely not always a pleasant experience for fans, but this is the reality of an anime that exists on a floating timeline with a protagonist built to last. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. Fourthly is a concept we will refer to as minimum continuity, which is somewhat of an antidote to the poopy poo of the soft reset. Essentially, minimum continuity injects just enough connections to past events and growth to make Ash's progress as a character believable. This is important because even though Ash lives upon a floating timeline, upon which he can only undergo marginal development, progresses laterally rather than in a forward direction, and undergoes the occasional soft reset to more or less put him in the rookie seat every series, if there wasn't some level of continuity established from series to series, it would be an insult to fans, and the believability of Ash as a character would collapse entirely. This is part of the reason why many viewers were displeased at the onset of the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime, when Ash was presented as a clown with about as much charisma as a sack of beans. Yes, Pokemon Sun and Moon turned out to be a really fantastic series in its own right, but Ash's dismissal of the adventure bug within him and sudden shift to the extreme goofiness of his goofy side really subverted the expectations that fans had for him. Accordingly, they have dialed things back in Pokemon Journeys so that Ash more closely resembles his more serious XY counterpart, for better or for worse depending on where you sit. All of this said, I think that the Pokemon anime's writers have actually handled Ash's minimum continuity fairly well. We're served quite a few throwbacks to Ash's past successes, classic characters and Pokemon of the past make cameos in every series, and while much of what could be brought out to service fans is left out for the sake of maintaining the focus on the continuous present, the writers don't entirely neglect fans' needs to see Ash's footprints in the world that he has been walking for so many years. Lastly, we have the CoStar Stories. While Ash hasn't undergone any drastic shifts in his character outside of what's been deemed necessary to fit the tone of a given iteration of the anime, and has largely been limited to marginal development within a given series, the supporting cast are a different Bidoof altogether. Whether it be Go or Chloe, Lily, the three coordinators, or perhaps even Blue Ball's Brock, mostly because I just wanted to name drop him, Ash's companions form a rotating cast of support characters and co-protagonists who each bring their own dynamic tales of growth and transformation to the show before rolling off to make way for the next round of co-protagonists to kick off a new cycle and make their own mark. That is to say that almost all of the genuine transformative character development in the Pokemon anime is achieved not through Ash but through his friends, and that includes not just his human friends but also the fresh set of Pokemon with new tales to tell that he encounters in every region. It's these characters that keep the show and Ash interesting season after season, sometimes really interesting. And even as an adult anime viewer who thrives off of content like Attack on Titan, Berserk, and Odd Taxi, it is really fun to tune into the Pokemon anime to see these new challengers finding themselves and chasing their dreams. In some sense, Ash almost undergoes his character development that he is denied vicariously through these characters, and certainly he serves as a catalyst for their development. Whether it be as Serena's source of inspiration to head out the door, or as a good friend who helped Lily overcome her anxiety. Ash may not be a particularly transformative character by necessity of his role in the broader Pokemon multimedia franchise, but he certainly transforms all of those around him all the same. And holy crap, I need to take out my contacts. Marginal development, lateral progress, soft resets, minimum continuity, CoStar Stories. These are some of the techniques that the writers have used to develop Ash within the confines of the floating timeline, and these techniques are also the reason why Ash releases so many A-grade Pokemon, why others like Charizard and Infernape are left to warm the bench, and why Ash starts just about every new adventure from ground zero plus Pikachu. Even so, I think the writers have taken the task of writing a protagonist built to last and done a pretty good job at sculpting Ash into an unaging, eternal hero. And we will be delving into the details of how these techniques have been applied from season to season to gradually shift Ash's character back and forth within the confines of the Ashtopia floating timeline in the next video, so stay tuned for that. But how about you? Do you think the writers have done a good job with Ash's development and the floating timeline? Or does he bore you to death and you would rather see him stuffed into a Pokeball and thrown into a lake? I'm curious what you think. I am actually so tired right now and need to take out my contacts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have all enjoyed this video and the videos before it. Have a wonderful week, and as always, let's chat.